Okay, so the first thing we need to do is grade our front pocket openings as well as our cargo pocket notch placement notches. So we're going to grade the cargo pockets separately, but we need to grade the placement. We will put these in 3D next semester, and we need to make sure we have some sort of indication on the actual pattern piece as to how the placement of these pockets grade. So for both of these situations, we're going to use specified distance. Remember, specified distance lets you grade a specific point along an already grading line, and all you have to do is enter what you want the distance to be from whatever reference point you choose and the graded point, and then enter what that distance should be for each size. Okay, so if we look at our spec, our cargo pocket placement grades 3/8 of an inch from the waist seam. So we're going to use that 3/8 inch value. I'm going to choose specified distance. It's always going to ask me for the new grade point first. So I'm going to click and drag into this notch. And it immediately asks me for the grade point for distance measurement. So that's where I'm measuring from, which is my waist. I'm in base up down incremental, so here I'm not using X and Y's, okay, but I am going to use negative values because I want the distance to change negative 3/8 of an inch for the smaller sizes, right? If I'm looking at my spec sheet, my smaller sizes, the values are minus 0.375 and minus 0.375, okay? I'm going to say okay, and I get this grade point here. If I want to check it when I'm in grade, I can go to measure, perimeter 2 points, choose this notch, and then choose this waist point. Okay, and you can check the values against your spec, but you can also check to make sure this size difference is 3/8 of an inch. When using perimeter 2 points, just remember that you have to go clockwise, okay, when you're selecting the 2 points. Okay, same thing for these. So the hand opening opens. We have a front pocket at side seam from waist seam. That's this notch. And we have a front pocket at waist seam from side seam. Okay, so that kind of gives us a clue as to which point we're grading and what we're grading from. So I'm going to go to specify distance. Both grade values are 1/8 of an inch. I'm going to choose the notch, and then I'm going to choose the waist point. I'm going to type in minus 0.125, minus 0.125, positive, positive, and I'm going to say okay. I'm going to do the same thing here. Notch, waist point, minus 0.125, so on and so forth. And I'm going to say okay. Now that I have these notches graded, I'm going to grade this hand opening line with it. The reason being, we're not going to do this today with this pattern, but if I was going to productionize this pattern, I would make pocket bags, and then I would break off my front piece would actually end here at the hand opening. So this hand opening line needs to grade with the pocket opening so that when you go and extract trace off this piece, it has this hand opening grade on it. So I'm going to copy from notch to internal line. From notch to internal line. Same thing we do on all of our other internal lines. Okay, and then for this cargo pocket notch grade, because our outseams grade identical to each other, I'm just going to copy this grade here to here. It's going to be exactly the same, okay, because this waist grade is the same and my outseam shape is very similar. Okay, that is all of your notch grading. Next, we have waistband and cargo pocket, okay? So I'm going to show you waistband first, and I'm going to show you a couple different ways that you can do this. The critical part about the waistband is that we have a mirrored edge, and we don't want that mirrored edge to move. We want all of our grade to be at the other end, okay? If this was a full piece and it did not have a mirrored edge, we would need to add grade to both sides. But since it's mirrored, if we add grade to this side, it will automatically add it to the other side when we open the mirror. So I need to hold these points, okay? So what's going to happen is if I were to grade this point here, these points are going to move. There's nothing holding this. These points are going to move, and then I'm going to have to come in here and clear X and clear Y. So instead, what I'm going to do is just go ahead and give these three points a grade rule 1. Remember, grade rule 1 is 0, 0 in our rule table always, okay? I should have mentioned before I did this that you also need to make sure that you have a rule table assigned to all of your pieces, and it should be the same rule table. If it's not, you'll have issues with your measure chart, and you'll have issues with your order and your marker, okay? So best practice for me is always to go to assign rule table, select all pieces with all of your pieces in the workspace, and then choose your correct grade table, okay? All right, so my waist grade is 2 inches, and my waistband is half of my waistband. So that means that the grade that's going here in the Y direction is going to be 1 inch. So I have 1 inch on this side, and when it's unfolded, you have 1 inch on the other side. So I can use edit delta, which we've used before, and we know works just fine, okay? With the edit delta, you just want to make sure that you choose you start at the center, the middle, the base size, and then you work your way out, okay? So you can do this. The other option is create offset, okay? Create offset grades, it works very similar to the modify line offset, right? We use create offset to move edges of our piece. It works very similar in that we choose a point, okay, and it offsets it in one direction, okay? Now, over here on this side, I have offset options. So I can do an individual point, or I can do it in both directions. So watch what happens when I do this. Let's see, we're doing 1, right? All right, so I have always both selected, and it's going to move in the X and the Y. So it's offsetting this point in both directions by 1 inch, okay? Now, I do not want that. I just want it in one direction. So I can say create offset and do individual. Now, watch. If I go from this endpoint, my yellow line goes in the X direction, which I don't want. If I go from the top line, okay, because I'm basically saying I want to offset this line at this point, right? So you're clicking on the line you want to offset, and you're dragging into that endpoint. Then I can type in -1, and I'm clicking enter on my keypad, and it autofills the values for me. Okay, now the only thing that I don't love about this tool is that when I do this, I now have a grade rule on this endpoint. But notice how I have a triangle stacked on top of a diamond. So even though this line right here is moving to meet that other line because they're joined endpoints, there is no grade rule on this line. So for example, if I tried to copy the rule from this point here, it won't copy because there is no rule here, right? So there's nothing wrong with it. It's just that if you're gonna use this, you need to know, because when I go to copy to this side, I can't copy from this line. I have to go from this line to this line, okay? So that is create offset. You also, if it bothers you, which sometimes bothers me when I have 2 points stacked on top of each other that should both be grade points, you can always copy from one edge to the other edge, okay? All right, now same thing goes for the pocket. So with the pocket, you get to choose your origin point. The pocket height and width grades 1/4 of an inch. So you can do 1/8 of an inch on all sides, which means your origin point is in the center. You can have your origin point at one particular corner and add grade to the other corners. I'm just gonna, for simplicity, just grade all the way around the pocket, okay? So again, you can use your create offset. In this case, you're gonna use an always both, okay? And you're gonna say 1/8 of an inch because your whole pocket width and height grade 1/4, so each corner point is going to get an 1/8 of an inch. Now, the tricky part with this one is that, so even though I have 2 diamonds here, this is a different grade point than this grade point, okay? So this grade point carries my Y, and this grade point carries my X, okay? So if I'm going to go around and copy these, I need to make sure that I'm copying the right rule, right? So I can say copy Y from here to here, okay? And then I can say copy X from this side to this side, okay? Now, the other thing you can do is just say create offset and go to each corner and just type in minus 0.125, and then go to the next corner and say minus 0.125, okay? And it'll do it for you. Now, the only reason I wanted to show you really this copy X, copy Y is notice how I copied X from here to here. And you notice that my colors are backwards, right? So my smallest size on this edge is on the outside of my piece. So the values are the same, right? Everything is an 1/8 of an inch, 1/8, 1/8, 1/8, 1/8, 1/8, 1/8, okay? But my negative positives are backwards. If you think about this being the origin point, each of these corners is in a different quadrant on your Cartesian graph. So this is your positive positive, this is your negative positive, okay? So if we want to keep values, but we just want to flip the negative positive, we can use this tool, which is flip X or flip Y. So in this case, I would want to flip X. So I'm going to come here, flip my X rule, and that's all I have to do. I show you this because there's going to be many instances when you're manually grading where it's beneficial to copy a grade rule from somewhere else just because it has the values, and then you just have to flip an X or flip a Y. Okay, now for my pocket flap, I'm going to have my origin point be at the center of the top of my flap and let my flap grow this way. So that means I need an 1/8 here, an 1/8 here, and my pocket flap height grows an 1/8 of an inch in length. So I'm just going to use a series of copies. Okay, so I'm going to copy the Y rule from here to here and here. Okay, so I'm just saying I want this edge here to grow like this pocket is here. Okay, turn on my nest. And then I'm going to do the same thing on the bottom. Copy Y from here to here to here. Okay. I'm going to copy X's from here to here to here and to here. Okay. Now, alternatively, if you get stuck somewhere, because I did a lot of different things, right? I did some create offsets, I did some copies, I did some flips. You can choose any of those. You can do a mix. But if you get stuck and something is off, always just default back to edit delta. You can always go into any of these points and just refresh your X's and Y's. They're all an 1/8 of an inch. Every single one of these points that's graded should be an 1/8 of an inch, except this top edge, which will have a 0 in the X. Okay. And that is all of your pocket and waistband grading.